Keir Starmer has just done something very strange in an interview on Scottish television. He's tried out a very peculiar appeal to maybe the Red Wall, those people who ditched Labour for the Conservatives in the 2019 election. And he's talked specifically about freedom of movement. He says it's gone, it's not coming back. Open borders. He says we don't have open borders and we don't want open borders. Well, I don't think open borders have ever really existed. Open Borders is the title of a book. For some reason, I was given 2 or 3 copies of this book. It's a very interesting book, but it's a fantasy project. Open borders do not exist, and even under the freedom of travel within the European Union, open borders have never existed. So even going back to the 19th and the 18th century, open borders did not exist. Most of the time you needed passports to get out of your own town. It's very difficult to envisage a situation where we have open borders, even should we want it. And then Keir Starmer went on to talk about the points-based system and how he wants to discourage the number of foreigners working, particularly in the NHS. He wants to encourage more highly skilled workers here. Well, of course, everybody wants that. But is he suggesting it's a very worrying rhetoric, in many ways borrowed from the worst of Suella braverman, which means we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, between Scylla and Charybdis. The way to reform the NHS, and it's badly in need of reform, is to change its management, to reduce the number of bureaucrats, and to ensure that the bureaucrats and the management reflects our society. At the moment, the management is incredibly white and incredibly limited in its vision. And it closes rank the moment there's any form of criticism of itself. In fact, I would suggest strongly that criticism of NHS management is more of a problem to NHS management than criticism of doctors and nurses. When we, as ordinary individuals, come across the NHS, we come across the doctors and nurses as a rule. But the doctors and nurses are completely constrained in what they're doing by management directives. It's management that needs attention. We need to laud the doctors and nurses for actually staying on, for being retained, because so many doctors and nurses have seen the way management works at first hand, and they have fled, either out of the business entirely or to another country. We need to find a way to retain all these people we have trained. We cannot retain them if the management is as hostile as it appears to be, as hostile, as blinkered, and frankly as stupid. And it's not just in the NHS. We've also got it in other big institutions like schools. Schools, we need to cut back on the bureaucracy. Most of it is unnecessary. And we need to stop taking the best teachers out of the classroom and pushing them into paper propelling. We need those teachers in the classroom. We need their experience, just as we need the experience of good doctors and nurses committed to our NHS. And I think we need to pull back from the sort of rhetoric that is being peddled by both Suella braverman and by Sir Keir Starmer. It's wrong. We can benefit from foreign support, not only from those who are highly educated, but also by those who are not. We simply need the numbers to manage our systems. We need people to help in our transport, in our health service, in our teaching. And we need to have people who share our vision. And part of that process of encouraging people from abroad to come and work here is a diplomatic one. That when those people leave here, they go back to their country and they take our values with them. But at the moment, the values we are projecting are horrible and exploitative. It's almost as if the entire system has been devised by Suella Braverman and Gavin Williamson on the back of an envelope. Oh, maybe it has, with a little help from Nadine Dorris. We need to be more visionary, and we need to be more world-embracing if we want to raise our country from the dregs into which it has sunk.